Yeah. Okay. So as far as easing into competition, into a match, I think you should do this even if you're wrestling or you're competing in jiu-jitsu against someone that you've already beaten before and that you should beat. In jiu-jitsu, you're like, well, one submission away from losing the match, right? So that's what's scary but yet cool about the sport of jiu-jitsu is you never got it in the bag, you could say. Now, wrestling, you can get thrown to your back and pinned, but that's tough to do, and it's tough to pin someone who really doesn't want to be pinned. Okay, but the problem in both sports is the clock does not have a lot of time on it. So if you go out there, let's say in a wrestling match, and you're wrestling, I'll use the phrase too aggressive, and some people will say, there's no such thing as too aggressive. Oh, yes, there is. If Tom Brady is winning the Super Bowl by 1 point, and he's aggressively making 30 to 40-yard passes, then he's a moron. That's too aggressive. You should not be doing that, Tom. Let's win the match. Let's win the football game here, right? Just run it up the middle and let's down it. And I mean, you get the idea. So I do think that it's just kind of, I knew a guy, he was actually 5th in the Olympics. He called it coach speak. The coaches, once you're done being a wrestler, you turn into a coach and you start getting all rough and tough and you're trying to give locker room talks and stuff and you just sound like a moron sometimes. You're just giving terrible advice. Yes, you should ease into matches because if you give up the first takedown in the state finals, you just might have lost that match. Now, sure, if there was a 12-minute match or 15-minute match, the best wrestler is probably going to win no matter what. So in the sport of wrestling, just so your jiu-jitsu listeners know, the statistic is somewhere around 85%. One, I guess, case was 83%. The other one was 87%. Whoever scores the first takedown, let's say 85% of the time, wins that match. Well, a lot of times I'm better than you anyway. So some smart people about 7 years ago said, well, let's look at the NCAA All-American rounds and the All-American matches and the matches between ranked opponents who may be in wrestlebacks and the finals and the medal rounds. Now let's look at those matches of evenly matched wrestlers, and it was still right around 85% of the time. Whoever got the first takedown won. So I like to encourage our athletes to ease into the match because what happens is haste makes waste. And I've learned a new phrase because I've harped on this a lot. Probably sometimes I just like to kind of chat back and forth and, sometimes you get kind of bashed in the comment section of, social media. When you give advice that's really common sense, smart stuff, but you really can upset the coaches and parents who are like, no, a warrior only tries to superiorly dominate everybody. And anyway, so I give them this statistic that, it is true that you should take your time because my opponent is very good. And let's be honest, the clock doesn't have a lot of time on it. So we like to have a phrase, the best wrestler doesn't win. The wrestler who has the most points at the end of the match is the winner. Same way in jiu-jitsu, right? Or whoever can submit the opponent. And there's a phrase that some military guys keep putting on the comments section, which is phenomenal. And it's a military phrase that says, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. I'm like, bingo. So that's sort of our approach. Last thing I'll say is this goes for the end of the match too. Because in the sport of wrestling, it's very common to say, always try to score. You shouldn't look at the clock. You should have no recollection of how much time is left. You shouldn't even know what period it is. You should just be trying to dominate, and score. I teach the opposite. I say, you should know how much time is on the clock, what the score is, and you should change the way you wrestle according to the clock and the score. Let's get back to Tom Brady. He changes the way he plays football as a quarterback according to the time and the score. And then I mention things like this, and people go, well, we don't like to stall. And I'm like, okay. Stalling is running away, jumping out of bounds, hiding in a ball. I didn't say stall. I just said don't be a moron, And so I do think that, probably not in jiu-jitsu, but in wrestling, we're still fighting this mindset sometimes. But you know what? I'm always just like, okay, just go watch Kyle Dake, go watch Helen Maroulis, go watch the elite level college men and women. Prove me wrong, But it's important to ease into a match, and it just is important to change the way you wrestle at the end of the match too, because, if I'm down by a point and there's 12 seconds left, I might try to get your head down and hit a cement mixer. I might try to throw you from feet to back. But if I'm winning by 1 point and there's 12 seconds left, I'm probably not going to do that. So that's my thoughts on that topic.